We might have some others joining us as we go along, but we'll welcome them when they get here. A couple of housekeeping things before we truly get into the discussion. First, we have a hard stop at 6 p.m., so we will make sure that we've wrapped up our discussion by then. We will open for public comment if time allows at the end of this meeting. This is not an official council meeting. It's not an official county commission meeting. We have publicly noticed it as a potential quorum. So no decisions, if you will, no formal action will be taken out of this. But the goal of today's meeting is to bring together all of the entities, public entities, if you will, who have a vested interest or who have been involved in the child care discussion over the last, not only several months, but the last 18 months for Sarah and some of the others. So first and foremost, it is well known that there is a child care challenge in Cottington County. We don't really want to spend a lot of time tonight talking about the fact that there is a challenge or not a challenge. We get that. Based on a recent child care study, we show that we are about 600 spots short of meeting today's need for child care in Cottington County. We have a couple of issues in front of us that have exacerbated the child care challenge in our community, and that is the announced closure of one of the largest daycare facilities in the county. And so the task before us tonight is not to get into details of any potential solutions. Those will come later. But the goal today is to come together as a group and determine the strategic focus, and then next steps for refining that focus and moving into action. We all, for the most part, up here operate within governing bodies that at some point would need to take formal action, whether that be a financial contribution to potential solutions or the creation of task forces or things such as that, and that'll be coming later. So before we start the discussion, I think it would be valuable to go around the room and just do, around the table, and just do a quick introduction, your name and what agency or organization you are with. And after that, I will turn it over to the mayor if he has any comments. He's looking at me like, I didn't think I'd have to speak. But I'm Amanda Mack, I'm the city manager, and I am just facilitating the discussion today.
My name is Todd Kays. I'm the executive director of the First Planning District here in Watertown.
Reed Oline, I'm the mayor of Watertown.
Randy Tepper, City Council at Large.
Kyle Peters, City Council.
Dan Shuddy, City Council.
Liam Culhane, president of the Watertown Community Foundation and leader for the H2O50 project.
John Allen, I'm the CEO at Prairie Lakes Healthcare System.
Liz Brownell, CEO at the Boys and Girls Club of Watertown.
Jeff Danielson, Superintendent, Watertown School District.
Heidi Clausen, Business Manager of the Watertown School District.
Good evening, Tiffany Sanderson, Lake Area Technical College.
Cam Corey, Lake Area Technical College.
Lee Gable, one of the county commissioners.
Myron Johnson, Cottington County Commissioner. Troy Van Duzen, Cottington County Commissioner.
Sarah Faust, Cottington County Community Services Director.
Sister Barb Younger, Mother of God Monastery.
Bruce Bueller, City Council.
Mike Danforth, City Council.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining us, especially on a little bit of a short notice. We scheduled this late last week, but appreciate everyone's time today, not only today, but all of the efforts that you all have put into this discussion over the last several months. It might be helpful at this time if Sarah and Barb and Mayor, if you want to chime in, to just give a very quick kind of high-level synopsis of where we're at in the child care discussion, and then we can dive in a little further on the specific needs that we're trying to address.
Okay. Well, so we have a community action team, coalition that has been working on childcare for about the last 2 years. During that time, we've done some community surveys and really worked hard to put together a plan that would address the needs in our community. We know this was a need before Little Blessings had to make their decisions, which we also know were difficult decisions. So we were already in the works having conversations with Lake Area Tech, Educare, the monastery, and all of those. We have a good plan for options in place, but we need some follow-through funding, those types of things to make it happen. I can go into more detail, but I don't want to get in the weeds of things too much yet. Sister Barb, do you want to talk about what options you have there?
Sure. As you know, I'm part of the Child Care Coalition also, and been working with the team for about a year. I'm also an employer, and so I know how well our economic development is and the need of parents. I'm a parent and a grandmother myself, and I know that quality daycare, affordable daycare, is a preeminent issue in every community across the nation. So as we have done our own work, the sisters have, and joined in partnership with the coalition, the data's right there. The need is all around us. So when Pastor Justin contacted me in January of this year and said, hey, I need some help because we've got a transition, I said, in typical sister fashion, we'll see what we can do. I don't know if we can do anything, but let's see what can happen. So we really went to work pretty quickly because we do have a solution. And the work has taken us all the way to, currently I have the letter approved by the state to open a facility after renovation that serves 225 kids. Little Blessings probably has about 125 kids right now. So that's 100 more kids than Little Blessings currently serves. So the solution is there. We've done all the hard work. All the data is in front of you. We've circulated it quite a number of times. And so what we're looking for is the solution. It's a community challenge. It's a community solution is the way I'm looking at it. And so part of that is in a fragile, I would consider a fragile and misunderstood business, it's really important that you put the right things in place to make it successful. And so I'm all about transitioning a business to be successful, no matter where it ends up, whether it's LATC or any other idea in town. We need everything on the table to function and to function well for us to keep the daycare we have and add more in the future.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Barb. Thanks for everyone for coming here. I would just like to say, for me, this is a quality of life issue, and it's also economic development for the Watertown community. This is a community issue, and therefore we will need a community-wide solution. That's why we have all of these different entities up here to express what they are willing to do, what they think the problem is, what they think the solution could be, because it's going to take all of us working together to come up with a solution. Because this isn't, as Barb said, this isn't just Little Blessings. That is kind of the spark that made this into a fire that everyone can see. But the issue has been going on for quite some time, and it will continue. So while we want to focus upon Little Blessings, we also want to not remain ignorant of the larger issue that we have, because we also need a lot more child care spots. We need to figure out a way to have government partner with business and private individuals to come up with a solution. So we need partnerships, and I want to thank everyone here because I think we can all agree that we're all mindful of the problem and want to be part of the solution. Thank you.
Okay, I guess to kick it off, so the solution is largely related to capital, right, Sister Barb? And we're looking at $4.5 to $5 million in capital needs to bring existing facilities up to today's standards and codes and retrofit them for childcare needs, which are different than commercial needs. Of that $4.5 to $5 million, about 500,000 of that is a direct need for the monastery to transition Little Blessings. Is that correct?
Right. So if you look at, there's some material that was is available and was handed out. 14,000 square foot of building, to renovate that, it is not cheap, but it is cheaper, much cheaper than building a new building to facilitate the daycare that we envision. So it would be about $3.5 million if somebody gave you the land just to build the building. So the solution that we looked at our 14,000 square foot of underutilized building and said, can we do this? And so the cost of that, to include new playground and a parking lot that can have a bus come to and fro, because there's lots of regulations there, to be a licensed facility. So this isn't a facility where there isn't state licensure or oversight. This is a facility where you care for infants to pre-K kids, and they are getting an education along the way. Little Blessings educational preparation is stellar. I think if there's any teachers in the room, they'd probably say, yeah. Today I was actually getting physical therapy from a doctoral candidate who was cared for at Little Blessings for 5-6 years. So she's back in Watertown doing her internship. She's a direct product. Lake Area Tech's success, this success, and any other ideas to include home daycare are all part of the solution. So none should drop. This has all got to be done in parallel. So the most imminent thing is, though, the need of Family Worship Center to transition Little Blessings off their campus. They have their own corporate needs. I don't want to speak for them, so I don't know if you want to let Pastor Justin just speak to that really quickly. Do you want to speak to that, Justin? So it's clear, or no?
You're welcome to come speak, join us at the table. However, I don't know if we have a microphone.
Justin, I think it would probably be fair and good to just address from your perspective so that the community knows that
What was the turning point?
that you're not,
Right. What do you want to
just doing
stand?
what you have to do.
Should I stand in them? I'll stand behind you guys because I feel strange trying to
We've seen you up.
You realize that you're supposed to, not turn your back to the crowd.
Oh, we've seen you up in front of crowds all the time, Justin.
My gum, that's number one. Okay. Well, good evening. I'm Justin Manzi, the pastor at Family Worship Center. And I guess just to kind of put this in perspective, and I'm going to just kind of give you a backstory. I was hired to come to Watertown, South Dakota. I actually graduated from Watertown High School in 1987. So I am I actually graduated with Reed. And so in that, moved away. I was up in Canada for 28 years doing ministry. I was asked to come and bring revitalization to a church, and that's at the Foursquare Church. And so in stepping into that church, the goal was we need to bring revitalization to a church that, as far as numbers, needs to be addressed as a congregation. Partly what that challenge was is we felt that we had a daycare with a church instead of a church with a daycare, because the daycare was over 170 kids, 44 employees, and around 90 to 100 people meeting on a Sunday. And so that out-exceeded the congregation. But in being here, we've seen the church grow to over 300 people, and that's continuing to grow. But what happened is the original space for the daycare was 5,000 square feet. That was the original space for the daycare. But because of different challenges in raising tuition and actually doing some of the things that probably should have been done, they used a formula called expansion grants. And as long as you would expand the daycare, you could get expansion grants. And so slowly the daycare began to grow and grow and grow, but it needed more space in the church. So it went from the foyer to the sanctuary to the whole part of the church building, into the fireside, which that means nothing to you, but it's just basically the church. And the staff had been gone down to just 1 or 2 staff, and they moved upstairs, and pretty soon the whole building was basically being used as a daycare center. And so in coming there and getting going to 300 people and also having 7 staff now and needing offices and needing space for a church and starting to do that, we felt the tension between, hey, we can't get expansion grants anymore. So then it began to be, let's build a $2 million building. Let's build that. Let's do this. But then it's like, okay, well, there's a lot more with that. So a lot of challenges began to be, and then we relooked at the formula of how many kids do we need here with the ratio of workers or teachers to make this work. And we soon realized that we had to up the tuition fees, and that is not an exciting thing to do, but we didn't want to do it so high, but we also had to justify we couldn't use expansion grants anymore. And you also realize that during the COVID grants, there was a lot of money given for COVID grants, and so that also skewed the formula of a healthy daycare. So for the last number of years, I believe as a business person, and yes, it's a ministry, but you still have to be wise because it is a business, and you have to pay employees. So when I inherited that, most of the employees working there were getting paid anywhere from $12 an hour to $14 an hour, some maybe $15 an hour. And so all of the parents were saying, you need to pay these people. Well, if you know anything with daycares and even schools, 80% to 90% of your budget is payroll. So it's not like a regular business where you can say, okay, 10% is in administration, 46 to 65 is in what we call employees. It doesn't work. That formula doesn't work. And without expansion grants, we saw the realization is this formula is not working in our space. We've outgrown the space. We did not want to close the daycare. That was never our intentions. It was, is there a solution? Actually, if I was going to be really honest, I sat down with Cam Corey for the first time and said, help, we don't know what to do. We have a waiting list, and we have outgrown our space, and there's tension between what's happening. So that led to a conversation with Barb. Hey, is there a solution here? Are you guys planning to start a daycare? What's happening? And we really thought this would be an ideal opportunity for us not to close a daycare, because as much as Sister Barb wanted a daycare, you don't just get to open up a daycare. There's licensing, there's a lot of understanding of how to run a daycare, let alone just saying we're going to open it up, and I think that would be a cool idea. It looks like there's a need, so let's open it up. There's an education, there's licensing, there's a lot of other things that go along with that. And so the idea was if we could transition Little Blessings Daycare and double, not only double, but we were actually at 5,000, designated 5,000 square feet. That was the footprint. But we were actually into probably about 7,000, but we were basically into the church part of it, and it just made it challenging. So I hear this. My intention was never even, and I just want to make this very clear, it was never to close the daycare even by December, but it was almost like you need to have a deadline to create a community crisis, which I don't know how wise that was, but that's just what happened. So, but I do think, as Reed had already said, this was just started a spark that this is a greater need. So I don't want it to see like, well, and of course I'm fighting all the things as this bad pastor came into town and doesn't like families. He's trying to kick them to the street. And it's like, that's not what I'm trying to do, but we are trying to solve a solution. Our building isn't that big, as maybe some churches are, so that is where the tension came in. So our heart is to work with not only Sister Barb and anyone else to say, hey, we want to see a healthy transition. We do not want to see this close. That's not our heart. But it was almost like we need a deadline, so it'll create some kind of like, this has got to be done now. And as much as I understand that, it really kicked back onto our church of like, you don't care, which I apologize to any parents out there that was in our heart. So we are trying to work with that. And that's why our last statement, even to the parents, is we're willing that if this money goes through, and it's just even saying it's honored it's going to be there, we are willing to remain open until that transition happens. And if that moves into 2025, we're willing to do that. We didn't want to have an open end because then it would be like, well, they're not going to close, so this could be 10 or 12 years. So we got time to work on this. This is a need now. It's the number one reason why families aren't moving into Watertown. And so I think that's where we're at today. So that was probably a little bit too much, but any questions for me in that? Is that helpful or yes?
Can you tell us how many spots for certain Little Blessings has currently?
Well, there again, this is very difficult because since the crisis alert of Little Blessings possibly closing, we've had a lot of parents that have been unsure and insecure of keeping their kids in Little Blessings. So we have parents that are right now driving their kids to Clear Lake to a daycare. We have other parents that are, so our actual numbers have dropped down to about 84 kids because of this. Now, if they knew we were going to remain open, they would come back and we fill up, and there is a waiting, we still have waiting.
If you were full, what's your capacity?
Honestly, I think if we were going to stay in the designated area, it would probably be about 125. Would that be right, Kirsten? In the designated spot? 150?
150.
In the designated spot. So in the designated spot, it would be 150.
Okay, and in addition to the 150 that would carry over to the Hill, how many are you anticipating adding spaces for? And I know it's a little bit
75.
fluid.
No, it's been
Okay.
approved by the state
Okay.
for
So
225 kids.
Yeah.
I mean, can I just talk to a couple pieces that I think Pastor Justin alluded to? First, one of the things that I've learned in my 2 years of not having any awareness of childcare to now feeling like I have all the awareness of childcare is it is an incredibly difficult business. It is not run like any other business, and there's not a big profit margin. Educare can speak to that much better than I can. But, so that is one of the first issues with childcare. We can't look at it like we do with other business models. We have also been working closely with the Chamber of Commerce and Watertown Development Company. We have a speaker, Kayla Klein, that's been a consultant we've been working with. Her and another economic development expert in the state of South Dakota are coming here to speak to this issue on September 19th, and so we hope that community members will also show up for that because they can talk to the challenges of the reality of childcare. So that's part of it. One of the other things that has come up a lot, can I speak to Roosevelt? Is that okay? Because I know there's been a lot of questions for Roosevelt, which isn't really my place to answer the questions of that. But what I will say is there are community members that are very interested in opening a child care facility at Roosevelt. As Pastor Justin alluded to, it's not as easy as just opening a child care in a facility. There's a lot of pieces that need to happen. The first is to see a care building. And then you need to find a provider, and you need to get it licensed, and you need to have a lot of pieces in place. And so there are people that are interested in that. There are people that are looking into that, but it is far from done. Currently, the school district owns that, and it's their building to determine what they're going to do with that building. But there is an interest in that. It's just not nearly as ready to go as the monastery and Educare expansion are, and so that's why our focus is here. We're also looking into in-home, how we can support in-home providers.
Thank you. Feel free to jump in at any point in time. A question that I have that we've had some discussions on the city side. So the numbers that are in front of us, right? So it's $2.4 million roughly for the renovation, for the expansion. We've been told that there's a gap of 500,000. When I do the math, if you factor in that somehow this group has decided that we can come up with 500,000, there's still almost a $700,000 shortfall. So I think it would provide some comfort to at least the people that I work with to know where that 700,000 is coming from, because what we don't want to have happen is, hey, we recognize this is an issue and we're kicking in some dollars, and then 6 months from now, hey, we need to kick in some more dollars. And so if you could speak to that, I think it'd be appreciated.
Sure. So there's a couple of things in play. Timing is everything. We need financial support from the business community. It's no different than LATC seeking financial support. You could never put a loan for this amount of money on a daycare and expect it to survive 6 months. You just can't. The profit margin is too small. And so part of what we need is traction, because we need other people in the community to help support that. Since the county commission meeting that I spoke at, and then Sarah was the week before me, and then when you welcomed the open forum discussion, I've had quite a number of business people in town contact me. And so that's the kind of traction we need. This is not something that the sisters can solve by themselves. It's not something the city's contribution can solve by itself, or any one entity. So we need a multifaceted approach to solve this. There's no other way to do it. And so, does that help? The other thing is, if I don't have some community support, my business plan that SD Works said, this is a great business plan, let's apply, we'll give you permission to apply. Because I don't have any of that money, I can't apply for that, because my business plan totally falls apart.
Can I ask some follow-up questions on that? So if we'll move into the asks portion of this and the needs. So the 500,000, okay, is that something that, okay, let me think through my question here. It probably would be advantageous if someone wrote you a check for 500,000.
Most definitely.
Okay. Let's make some assumptions that I don't have a checkbook that can support a $500,000. I know it would be great if I did, but I do not. So, what I've heard some different conversations. Okay, if we can't get 500,000 in cash up front, it would be valuable or helpful if there were a 5-year commitment. I think for us, tell us what the ask is, what gets the gap closed, and then we can back into how we can potentially solve that.
So yeah.
Those are two different things.
Yeah. They are two different things, Amanda. So, so I need the 500,000 assurance from the community support to make my business plan in request to South Dakota Works. That's that. It's part of my business plan. The other thing is that I would be so happy if Smith's Sandwich Shop said, I'll give you $100 a year for the next 5 years. Or another entity said, I'll give you $10,000 for the next 5, because that pays off the SD Works loan. I have 5 years to pay off that SD Works loan, right? And so I've had some questions, what's coming back to the monastery? We're going to pay off the SD Works loan by the rent of that building, which will be a really small rent. And so this is not the highest use of that building. If we wanted to monetize 14,000 square foot, we have a lot of ideas we can monetize it. A daycare income is not the way to monetize. So the monastery is not trying to get some money or do something else with any kind of profit. That's not it at all. So this is a gift to Watertown, because once you renovate a building like that, it's going to be that for 20 or 30 years or more. So it is a gift to Watertown, quite honestly. Does that help you, Amanda?
Helps me, yeah.
Yep. And so this is for renovation. It is not for operation. This is just to renovate the building. I'm not going to come back and say, hey, we got to give our teachers a raise. Do you have some money? That's not it at all.
I package these types of things all the time. I'm still struggling with the math on the sheet here. You've applied for 270, but you haven't acquired any of those grants?
No, because they are released in September and October.
And then the $500,000 works loan is in progress. That's what you're talking. You're borrowing that money. You've raised $500,000 either in land, architecture, and consulting fees.
No land. No, this
contribution
is so the architectural plans, the consultants. We have to pay civil engineers to change our land. The city's already seen the zoning requests that we put in, so we've done all the work, literally.
And then the 500 grand is, we're calling it community contribution, but we're saying let's just call it county city, because those are the asks that I've seen, right? In the paper. And then there's still a $700,000 gap.
That's right.
And that gap financing is what we're talking about, hitting up the public.
Right. We need other support.
And of that $700,000, before you hit South Dakota Works up and sign the ink on the deal, that all of that needs to be in place, or a portion of that needs to be in place?
A portion of it needs to be in place. there needs to be traction, there needs to be interest and some financial support from the community.
Then I guess the other follow-up question that banker-type people like me like to ask then, in your business model, your business plan, with the acquired debt and assuming that all the other grants and contributions come in to make that, it does cash flow the business over the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh, yeah, so we have a pro forma, our consultants are from Sioux Falls, they own 4 of the largest daycares in Sioux Falls, right? They're very, very well versed in this.
They're doing the Madison project. Are they the ones doing the Madison project? Yep. Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Allen again. You know, in healthcare, one of our challenges as a mission-driven organization is that we tend to know reasonably well the health needs of patients that we see. It's much harder to know the health needs for people that we don't see. And so my question in sort of a roundabout way is, in the development of the pro forma and the development of your business plan, has there been an opportunity at all to confer with some of the larger employers in the community to know what the needs of their employees actually are?
Go ahead.
We did through some of the surveys that we've done 2 different surveys. One, we did a parent survey where I think we received about 350 responses or so for the parent survey for community members. And so that happened a year and a half or so ago. And then Kayla Klein, our next consultant, did another survey just with businesses. And that's also part of the report, which we have, we can get access. So we have reached out to both parents and businesses to receive the input from them. Yeah. Yeah.
Question a minute. So if the $500,000 was pledged to trigger, I'm assuming the GOED SD Works program, does the $500,000, is it held in some kind of escrow account, or is it used as we go until we close on the loan?
You mean if the city or the county was to?
Yeah. So maybe to clarify a little bit, so since the city's talking about taxpayer dollars, I guess I'm taking it from the perspective of we want to make sure that they're being utilized for the final result. So the question would be, if we rally around the county, the school district, and the city, for example, and we get $500,000 drummed up, is that burn rate started, or is that held until you know you have the project and the funding in place?
Oh, I would absolutely want it to be held somewhere and would not want it to be delivered to any kind of outsourcing of funds for any other expenditures that might be included before a hammer swings. Absolutely not. So that's where Watertown Community Foundation came in and generously said we'd manage this. So there are different ways we could do it. I would, a letter of intent or a MOU or something of that, or a loan agreement or grant agreement would have to be, I would want that protection.
Okay. A couple more questions. The next question would be, you mentioned this money was for, I think, construction, is that right?
Renovation.
Renovation. Would there be a desire to have ongoing subsidies from different entities, or do you guys feel once you get debt paid down with the commitments that you guys would have in place, that it would otherwise cash flow?
Yes, it would cash flow.
Okay. And the reason I bring that up, and there's 2 things here. We want to know that it works and we're giving money to a reliable cause, and I think the people in the audience just want to know that they have somewhere to take their kids.
Absolutely.
So we're kind of talking 2 different things here. But the reason I bring that up is because it's clear that Little Blessings is closing, and when I hear those thoughts, I think, well, if it was making money, would it close? So I think the concern would be from a taxpayer dollar standpoint, are we giving money to a winning solution? That's the only thing that I think most of us care about, is that we're giving money to a valuable cause. And you guys have done a fantastic job. I'm not doubting your business model. That's just the clarity we're looking for, to be honest with you.
I think that brings up a good point for the community, because in the reality of it is that daycare has a very hard time making ends meet. And most communities that sustain daycare look at it as a community issue and a community-supported piece. They don't, and Kayla will talk about this, and she's definitely the expert in this, I am not, but the challenge that daycares run into, it's childcare facilities, all of them run into, is it becomes too expensive for parents to afford, but not expensive enough to run a facility. And that's just the reality of the childcare model that we have across the board. It's not any one facility. The monastery has done a fantastic job working to overcome that, knowing that the rates are going to be what they're going to be in order to make ends meet while trying to keep it as affordable as possible. If you add loans or those types of things on top of the costs, it no longer becomes possible to do that.
So here's some of the things that are different in this plan. So Little Blessings moves out from under Family Worship Centers, EIN, their umbrella. It won't be under the monasteries. Part of that $500,000 that the monastery is dedicated would be to pay the consultants for the first 18 months of operation to help Little Blessings get on their feet, because we will be a standalone entity. We won't own it. This gives a board of directors a chance to form. A board of directors is oversight over monthly and yearly expenditures about how the daycare runs. So we're taking this into a totally different model. Families from Little Blessings have approached me and said, I'd like to be on that board of directors because they have a vested interest. People who are Little Blessings alumni were like, I'd like to be on that board because they have a vested interest. So we've already started changing the business itself, how it operates, and nonprofits are designed to go ask for help, because that's why they don't pay taxes, right? So there has to be ongoing community support. I would love if there was a scholarship program for Little Blessings. They have a stellar educational model. So why wouldn't we seek some kind of, those kinds of things? So there's lots of creative solutions to doing it well. Family Worship Center carried it almost 30 years, and so to turn it over into a new model makes sense in 2024.
Well, I'll just throw it out there. And I'm just one vote, but I would like to see some sort of partnership where the city, we would front some money to help solve the immediate problem. We would obviously like some partners on that. I know that the county has had discussions, and I know other entities have had discussions, but also to not even stop there. Councilman Peters has come up with an idea with basically a revolving loan fund so that more ideas can come forward in the future, where it's not just Little Blessings, it's other things. Because like I know at Garfield, where Educare is going, you have a need for some infrastructure for like a parking lot and a road. And I also want to really thank what CAM has been doing, CAM and Tiffany and everyone at the school, because like they've entered into a partnership with Jenkins Living Center. Casey's in the back there, where Jenkins has a contract with them where they pay for certain childcare spots to be reserved for employees of Jenkins. And if we can, and then that gives the assurance to Educare to know that they have a certain amount of money coming in. Yep. That's the kind of innovative partnership that we can move forward to in this community, because it's not just Jenkins that needs those childcare spots. It's going to be Prairie Lakes Healthcare Systems. It's going to be the school district. It's going to be, all of the businesses in town. So I don't want to stop with just that, but I do think that the time is now to do something to solve the immediate issue of Little Blessings so that we are not facing a bigger crisis, but then to also be aware and move forward with something for the community to address other daycare solutions. And that means Educare. That means the possibility of Roosevelt. It means partnering with the Boys and Girls Club, because you do a lot of childcare every day. It's just not, it's just a different model. But we need all of these people together to come with solutions. So that would be what I would be looking forward to, as far as if we're going to start looking towards what the ask is, then that would be my idea. But I'm just one person. I'd welcome any other ideas as well, but this at least would get us over the immediate hurdle and then give at least some sort of framework for going forward.
I'm just going to jump in a little bit on that. You know, Pastor Manzi said that he's got a little bit of heat over the announcement that they're going to close. Well, what he created is just what he was talking about earlier. He created the spark to that fire. And we're looking at a large issue. Sarah and her group has put in, what, a year and a half, Sarah? And you know, who would have guessed that Watertown was 600 short before this? It's the community's opportunity to really step up, public, private, to step up and solve a much bigger problem than just little blessings. I think as a community, we can rally together with this, but it's going to take a lot of partners, not city, not county, everybody. I mean, it's going to take the business community. It's going to take a lot of private partners with this. It's actually an exciting time because we're looking at solving a much bigger issue than what brought this to the fires. So, go ahead, Sarah.
So speaking to that, what we're looking at is capacity. We need to increase capacity because really our ultimate goal is quality. And I think that's where we as a community, we want quality places for our kids to go. We want to know our kids are safe and cared for in a safe, quality way every day. One of the other initiatives that's come out of our child care group is the early learner community. And so the city, the county, and the school district have partnered to coordinate with the state to become an early learner community as well. And the whole goal of the early learner community is that we increase quality options for our kids and that we give our kids a really good start. And so I'm excited to hear these conversations. I'm excited that we're having the conversations because it is just the first step towards getting our community where I know we all want it to be. So,
thank you.
Mayor, can I ask you a question? Just want to make sure that I'm clear in what you said. Are you proposing that the city engage with the monastery on the gap, the 500,000, whether that's a one-time commitment, which I would advise against, PS, or if it's over 5 years, and then partner with the people in this room to look at a longer-term solution? Or are you looking for partnerships on the gap?
Well, I'm technically not proposing anything because that wouldn't be legal at this meeting.
Well, no, you can.
But the idea for discussion would be, I guess where I would like to go is Councilman Tupper and I met with Barb a couple weeks ago, and knowing our city finances, we could probably commit better to 5 years to get the money, and then that would also give you the assurance to get the grant and the cash flow that you would need. So that would allow the city to keep the capability of fulfilling the needs that we have to address in this community as well, while also taking on other needs that need to be addressed. So in order to make that happen faster, some partnerships up front fiscally would be obviously advantageous. But as I said before, I don't want to end just there because the problem doesn't end with just one facility. It is continuing throughout the community. So I want to keep it going, and then that's really where we're going to need a lot of partnerships with everyone, monetarily, but also with expertise and time, because as you just mentioned, it's like the community foundation. Without them to take in the money and secure it as basically a donation, you absolutely have to have an entity like the Community Foundation to help out. Liam Culhane is over there with Watertown 2050, and they already identified that childcare is a need in the community going forward, and it's not going away, and it's going to go up as Watertown continues to grow. So even that partnership with that community-driven or citizen-driven organization is something that can help spread the word to convince the businesses that they also have to come in and partner with us and do things like the Jenkins and Educare partnership. So that is, I guess, what I am proposing and how I would envision it. But as I said, I'm just one person, but I think that this at least gives us a framework to discuss off of.
So to maybe expand on that revolving loan fund comment, so everybody knows where we're at least I think where the city's at. Here's what we know. We know the daycare is closing. We know that the businesses are going to be affected. There's no question about that. We know that there's other daycare providers that would like the help in town. We know this is a regional effort, not just a city issue. And when I mean region, I mean city, Cottington County, school district, other counties in the area, because what we heard at our last council meeting is that people are actually driving in from, I think it was Webster, to take their kids to daycare here. So what we do know is we have a bird in hand here to make a transition and a soft landing. And so the idea behind the revolving loan fund is that it doesn't just put a Band-Aid on the situation. It helps everybody. And we are in a tight spot. If we get a financial ask from one individual, now we're in the business of picking favorites, and we're giving money to somebody directly. What happens when the next person comes to us and says, well, we need money? And that's not fair to any of the government bodies up here, and it's certainly not fair for taxpayers. So I guess that's where I'm at. That's why the revolving loan idea was what came from the city. I think it's an option, fair for lack of a better term. It's probably going to take some time. It's going to take some horsepower to get those dollars raised, but I think that ultimately entices more people to potentially even start a daycare. As easy as it sounds, the way it sounds.
And I also want to add something, like with the idea of the revolving loan fund, I am not envisioning that this is controlled by the city. I want to assure everyone, you're not giving money to the city to then divvy out. We need to form some other kind of organization where if you are partnering with us, you have a voice at that table, where the decisions are made independently of the elected officials, of the people. We need to get people who know the situation better than what we do, and then they can make the decision as far as when an ask is brought to them, whether that be an in-home daycare or something like that moving forward sometime in the future. They would then make the decision, which of course would then need to be brought back to the governing bodies so that we know what's going on. But that's the part that I have not figured out yet. So I would definitely like to hear other people as far as how they envision the governance of the revolving loan fund.
I think it's a good time to ask the question of the providers around the table, whether that's the Boys and Girls Club or Educare. Would that be helpful? I mean, we don't want to go down a path of creating another structure, another process, but what we've heard consistently for the last several months is that the need in order to increase capacity is largely driven by capital. Increasing spaces. And if there were a pot of dollars available that could be applied equitably, is that desirable? Is it a path we should continue exploring?
Thanks for the question, Amanda. I'll speak as a public entity. I think the idea of a revolving loan works well in a nonprofit or a for-profit space. As a public entity, it's probably not the solution for expansion in Educare, but I think it does help in the big picture address the need for expansion. And just so everybody has an understanding of Educare's current situation, our goals for the future. Currently in our care, we have about 55 kids. We would like to grow that care to 135 children in our care, plus have before and after school care for about 40 kids from that kindergarten space, plus their siblings if they're under the age of 8. So we would love to be a continued part of the solution and an expanded part of the solution. We'll just have to be really mindful how we do that. We fully see our involvement in daycare as a service to the community. Lake Area Technical College provides our building, our custodial and maintenance staff, our utilities as a part of supporting Educare. we couldn't run in the black without the college providing some of that service. And we recognize there's a need in the community and happy to help out in that way. In order for us to move forward, the very most critical needs that we have total about $420,000. If we took care of every corner of that building and property for childcare use, we'd be somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1.2 million to do that. But really focused right now on that $420,000 need to move forward. We're going to put in about $100,000 from our cash on hand in order to meet that $420,000 need. That's for fire suppression, that's for air conditioning, that's for renovating bathrooms from the elementary space to usable for ADA code for our daycare children, and some very basic flooring and lighting upgrades. So that's really where our focus is at this point, and I like the conversation around the revolving loan. It's probably not the solution for us as a public entity, but I can see it working well for others.
Good afternoon. We have a little bit different model at the Boys and Girls Club of Watertown. We are obviously a nonprofit, but we are serving kids from 1st grade through 12th grade. So our best model is the school-aged kids. We're very proud to serve over 400 kids a day, and we're able to do that with, aggressive fundraising, and we're very grant-driven, and many partnerships, including the city and the school district. And so I think, we're going to stay in that lane of serving that 1st through 12th grade. That is the Boys and Girls Club mission. The school-age kids work the best in that kind of environment. We do serve kids at 5 locations across the school district. And when you look at it, a very large population of the Watertown School District kids utilize our services in some manner. So I think things are working well for us. Can we have more kids? Absolutely. We have 50,000 square feet of space. We have seen an increase this summer and have had a very busy fall. I think some families have been transitioning over to us, and we're very welcoming to that. So, but it's just a matter of what we've all been saying today. The cost of business is increasing. Keeping very quality staff members, feeding 440 lunches on a busy summer day, it is getting challenging, but we are remaining to our mission to keep our fees affordable to all. And it does take a big village to do what we do every day. So did that answer your question, Amanda? Kind of what our model is going to look like as we move forward. So.
Well, within that model, because I believe the goal would be of a revolving loan fund is to help expand capacity. Mm-hmm. Is that valuable to the Boys and Girls Club within the model that you guys operate under?
Yeah, we obviously are looking at, a lot of partnerships are the key to our success, and that's why we've had 50 years of a very good organization and good outcomes. So I continue to think that we will need assistance as well in partnership to, keep our operations the way that they're at too. But I also recognize that, that the Boys and Girls Club is not for every child, and we really don't serve the infants, toddlers, or preschool market either. So we're just a little bit different, in the actual need of what people are needing. So as far as school-aged, I think, we are definitely welcoming to be able to continue growing and expanding if we do need to.
And I want to just add a piece of data to dovetail with what Liz was saying, is the biggest expansion that would go in this, that would follow this transition from Little Blessings at Family Worship Center to the Hill is from the infant to the 5-year-old getting ready to go to kindergarten. That is the biggest expansion that we will have in the 225, is in that age range, because that's where it's needed the most. We know that's the biggest need in the community. So we're very aware of that, and so when we sit around the table and talk about specific demographics like that, you can start to see how the puzzle could fit together so that we can serve all ages of our kids.
Sarah, I've read the study actually a couple different times, and I cannot remember if the breakdown of the 600, if the need is broken down by age.
So the 600 is 5 and under. And then there's a greater need for elementary, yeah.
Exactly.
So not, yeah. And I will say, oh yeah, thank you. I will say that's registered providers. So one of the other pieces that we really haven't talked about is the in-home providers. Watertown actually has a very high number of non-registered in-home providers that are meeting a significant gap in there. We have no way of measuring that because they're not registered, and so there's no way to track that number. But we do know that, according to tax returns, there's 99 in-home providers in Cottington County. We have 8 registered in-home providers, so approximately 90 unregistered in-home providers in our county. With that being said, one of the other initiatives that our action team has worked to do is to pull together an in-home provider support network, and that group is called Watertown Daycare Providers Matter. They have started meeting monthly to look at what they can do to support in-home providers. They don't require you to be registered to be a member of that. Of course, our ultimate goal is to increase the number of registered providers because that opens up more opportunities for a lot of different things, but it is not a requirement for that. There is some basic requirements, like you agree to some basic standards of not having more than 12 kids, providing good meals. I don't have the list in front of me.
Education.
Yeah, that you're just gonna be a quality provider, whether or not you're registered, in order to be a member of the Watertown Daycare Providers Matter. But that is another effort that we're making to support those in-home providers as well. Yeah. That.
In regards to the in-home and the revolving loan concept, it seems like, at least anything that I've heard, really hasn't been a capital need from in-home to get started and to run their business. So the question then becomes, really, we're talking about the more institutional type of operations like we're talking about today. So the question then becomes, if we're not going to fill this gap with in-home. It's going to have to be larger foul swoops of this, like the 225, like the LATC is doing, and like there may be some other considerations. And to me, that is where the revolving loan would assist, because it needs to be towards the startup and the capital side, not the operational side. And to me, that's what's important, and that's where the dollars got to go. How that gets managed, who does it, that's all detail that we'd have. But I don't hear that from those that are in-home providers, and that there really is a capital need.
My wife is an in-home provider, and I generally agree, she's been doing it for 20 years, that the business startup is fine. And if you're talking $1 million, a revolving loan fund, we're not going to come in and ask for $100,000. But you could see some in-home daycare providers looking at purchasing equipment, getting low interest loan money, or something along those types of things, to build a fence, to put a playground system in their backyard, maybe do some things, improvements to address safety and those types of things. So those are the types of things where I think an in-home provider, most in-home providers, my wife's an unregistered in-home provider. She watches 3 children. But most in-home providers, I think they have a set number that they want to stay at. They don't want to be raising 12 kids because they're the only ones home by themselves. They're in that 3 to 8 I think is a general number to what you end up seeing. And so I think the revolving loan fund could be a tool for some of those in-home providers. I do agree. I think you're probably looking at larger dollars coming in, whether those are 0% interest-free loans or they're principal forgiveness over time or something along those lines. There probably are going to be accessed more by centers.
Yeah.
And if I could, just real quick on that, to clarify, and not to discriminate against in-home daycares, but with the criteria, if this revolving loan fund takes form, we want to be real careful about what they're using it for, not adding 2,000 square foot of space on their personal home. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a concern that we discussed in our meeting earlier this week with the city, because I don't know how we...
And I would also assume that if a revolving loan fund would not be for the ongoing costs, it would not be for personnel costs, it would not be for those types of things, it would have to be for equipment, infrastructure type buildings. And while we're here, I know this one other sidebar, we talk about grants, and I think, and I've talked with Sister Barb on this, we're short for hitting up the community development block grants at the state level because of the timing of what needs to be done. But as we're looking at, you know, Roosevelt or other buildings that could be repurposed, or we could be building a new building like they're doing in Madison, you know, there are grant dollars available for those hardcore constructions, and we helped Flandreau and Madison get $1 million each, which would be great, but we're just, the window's closing too fast on this opportunity.
It is. That's right. That's right.
And I think as far as the in-home, I just want to make a comment. I agree they're not going to be the huge solution, but I think they have to be part of the solution. The city could also explore some other pieces as far as making registration easier or some other pieces like that. Those are all things that could be explored, which is a whole different conversation. There are some costs towards registration, and so potentially supporting some of those types of things would also be discussion too.
But I think we do want to incentivize the centers, right? Those are more children. I think that's what the goal would be for the revolving loan fund, is we figure out how to help the centers, because they should be our priority. They're going to yield us more children than an in-home.
I guess I'd like to ask perhaps the superintendent, county commission, where you are thinking, and I know that you have your own boards that you have to talk to, but just wondering what your perspective would be. And I don't mean to be, you know, calling anyone out, or, you know, you're not an enemy if you're not with us or anything like that, but we are looking for partners simply because, you know, the city of Watertown, we're not in the daycare business, and we don't want to be, but we want to help those who are in the daycare business because it helps all of Watertown. And this very much is a rising tide lifts all boats type thing, because I want to get Watertown to a place where you've got to reopen schools and start building a whole lot of new ones because the demographics demand it. And I also want to see the businesses partner in, even those that don't have perhaps, let's say, the direct need for employees that have young children. But one thing that I hear all over town is the competition for the limited employees that do exist here in Watertown. So even if you might not have, let's say, an employee that has a young child, the competition between businesses is so fierce that another business is going to poach your employee. So you feel it even if you don't see it. And we've got to get that solved for Watertown to grow, because I don't want Watertown to be in competition with itself. Watertown is in competition with communities in other states. And that's one of the ways that I had to get my head around getting into daycare, because the conservative in me really questions what government's role is. But at the same time, other communities are getting involved in daycare. So if Watertown is not, we are falling behind. And that's what I just see, because people will look at the communities that are investing in itself. So I'd welcome any comments from the other entities.
Mr. Mayor, I was afraid you were going to ask the county to say something, but I guess I think I would personally agree with everything you say. The challenge for us is going to be, you know, fiscal. We have to really think about that. It's not a, you know, like you say, it's not really a bread and butter county issue with the kinds of things that, you know, the law tells us we have to take care of. But we do want to see the community grow. So that's something we do. From a financial thing, we just got to talk about it amongst ourselves and look at our budget. And you know that, you know, when we budget stuff, one thing that I wanted to hear more maybe about the timeline that we're looking at. And I know we talked about that a little bit when you were talking to us, Barb, before at the county commission meeting. But, you know, we have to look at all that stuff. And I guess the thing to emphasize is that local government is not going to be the main piece of this. At least I don't think so. You know, if we're able to help, you know, which we might be able to, or may not, we really need to look at it. Then I don't think it's going to be the lion's share of it. So,
And thank you, Commissioner. I guess the way that I am thinking of it in my head is local government and the entities, we can help get this started, but what's going to keep it going is going to be the partnership with the businesses and the daycares, because that is going to be the model where the daycares know that they have the cash base. They basically know they can plan on the income because they partner with businesses that are going to pay for certain spots. That is how I think it's going to be able to stay solvent into the future, because if we're depending upon any local government, any, whether that be the school, county, city, it's not going to succeed. It's not going to stay afloat long-term if we don't start doing some of the other things. So that's, I guess, how I wanted to address that. But we definitely need something to get this started.
Mayor, I would like to just echo what Commissioner Gable said there. From a county perspective, I think we understand that this is not just a city problem, this is a regional problem. And, the city of Watertown is in Cottington County. So we take ownership of this just like the city does, and we have employees that utilize those daycares as well. And so I think you can say that we're on board for the support. Financially, we're not sure what that looks like yet, but we will continue to support this cause.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to clean up anything that my fellow commissioners have said. I agree with what they're saying, but we have, over many, many years that I've been on the commission, we have been a very, very staunch supporter of the Boys and Girls Club. To give you an idea, that we do really have a place in our heart for those types of organizations. And we will be there to support the daycare, whatever we can do. We have so many people standing there with their hand out, as you all know, but the Boys and Girls Club, I think, falls right in category with this child care situation, that we would be there to help out in one way or another. Amen.
So from the school district end, we are very supportive of the efforts that the community is putting forward. Just to kind of, I don't know if I want to call it educate the group at the table and in the audience, but one of the difficulties from, if you're looking for a financial contribution from the school district is, we receive our funding based off of educating students from ages 5 to 18. That's what our funding is supposed to be for. It's for the education of compulsory attendance ages. And so, but the reality is, we've got 750-ish employees when you count the K-12 and the Lake area side. It's a very real presence for us, even just making sure that we can run, knowing that our employees have daycare. What we feel we have tried to address, we've had 2 years where we spent talking about our elementary schools. One of the focal points of the reorganization we actually ended up with is the creation of an early childhood center at McKinley. So we've always had early childhood special education preschool. 3-year-olds are able to come for services. 4-year-olds actually get a preschool setting, so a half day in the school, and that is free for those students that qualify. We also have had a Title I preschool that is income-based. Again, if families qualify, that has been free. What we added in the reorganization is a tuition-based preschool, and realistically, we thought maybe 40. We're at pushing 75. Children in Watertown have been able to come into the school for 4-year-old preschool. And so we think that we've kind of contributed what we can under kind of our mechanism already. We've upped our transportation options to the with direct shuttles to the Boys and Girls Club. We've tried to make it more enticing to support the Early Childhood Center by having direct shuttles from McKinley to the other 3 elementary schools at Lincoln, Jefferson, and Millette. We've worked with Educare, very much appreciate their addition of before and after school care at Educare. So we've, especially because the Boys and Girls Club does not support kindergarten through their mission. So we've had to really work with Educare for that after-school care in particular to get our McKinley kindergarten students over to Educare. So that's kind of the difficulty we run into if you're looking at, like, we would probably not be able to come up with a revolving loan for daycare through the K-12 funding mechanism. That just isn't really in, you know, in what a K-12 school district is supposed to do, but know that as we've made decisions, the idea of learners and children before the age of 5 has been very present in the decisions we've made, whether it's on the K-12 side or in conjunction with Lake Area and what they're doing. So certainly supportive of all of the efforts, because like I said, even as a large community employer, we know we need quality daycare so that people can come to work and feel good about leaving their children somewhere so they can then be a Watertown School District employee, either K-12 or Lake Area. So, did I miss anything?
How about it?
Go for it.
I think they have a microphone over there for you to use.
And while you're grabbing them,
Well,
yeah.
Jeff's given me an opportunity to really jump in on something there, so.
Now it's on. I'm Jim Redlinger. I'm retired, and I really don't want to be here, but Doug Sharp couldn't be here, and I made the mistake of answering a phone call from him about 2 months ago, so I got involved with Roosevelt School. And that's where Jeff can come in. I know the school district can't do money, and I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit. In a perfect world, what we do, the school could work out a deal with the city, where the city would take over a Roosevelt School. The city, in their wisdom, would come out and lease that back to a 501c3, a nonprofit. And to just give you a little bit of a timeline on Roosevelt, we met yesterday with the fire marshal and building inspector. And right now, Roosevelt's got room for just over 200 kids on the first floor. And I've gotten some numbers put together from contractors, and for us to get that up and running to meet all the state requirements would take about 90 days and cost right around $200,000. So, but also, you got to keep in mind, Roosevelt, 200 people or 200 kids, Mother of God, 225, we're still short. Even throwing, little blessings, we're still short. So again, these are all Band-Aids right now, but they are opportunities too. So I was just going to, bring that up to speed. The reason we're not, just to give you a little more background, we looked at doing the entire Roosevelt School. We start going into that. We have to fire sprinkler the entire building, air conditioning the entire building, and now we're up to about 1.6 million just to update that building. Beautiful thing about it, fire system meets all the codes. It's already got the card readers from a safety standpoint, and it's also ADA accessible. So there's some pluses. But again, we can't pass up Mother of God either, because we need that too.
Hey, Jim, can I ask a couple questions? So the 200,000 that would serve 200 kids? If you did all in.
200,000 is just, actually, the air conditioning side is the only thing we have to really do to the building. And then all the electrical outlets have to be childproof.
Sure. If you were going to do the full project, the 1.6 million, how many kids would you be able to serve?
It'd be think it's 385.
Okay. And then my last question, what would, maybe this is a question for Dr. Danielson, what would prevent the school from entering into a lease with a nonprofit? Why would that need to be conveyed to the city?
Well, so when we went through our, kind of our reorganization, we looked at Roosevelt as the, kind of the last, or the school that if we were going to downsize that we didn't need. We have some capital repairs that we had on our 5-year capital outlay plan that kind of prompted us to make that as part of the decision-making process. And so realistically, as I've told a number of different entities who've inquired about what we're doing with Roosevelt, we would rather sell it than be a landlord. And that really is kind of been our stance, although, it has not been a topic of board discussion up to this point. So, there's not a lot more I could say beyond that without allowing our school board to be involved.
And just from a historical standpoint, I know some from friends in other states that something similar has happened, and it just went to the city. And again, I don't know why. From a school district.
Transfer the property without having to go through the bidding process.
Can I make a, oh, sorry.
I think I have a question in regards to the city own. Are you commenting to the city taking ownership of Roosevelt essentially? Because for us, why we would have taken it off of kind of our hands is within our 5-year capital outlay plan, we're looking at a major roof replacement, boiler system updates. It's not sprinkled, fire suppression. You also have, there's just significant updates when I look at it from a daycare perspective. So,
And it doesn't even have a water service big enough for that right now.
right. So when I think of this conversation, it kind of goes back to the same conversation we're having about moving to Harmony Hill because we need such significant dollars. So am I correct in saying that both areas we're looking at the same amount of money? I understand that in 90 days we could help operation a little bit, but not long-term. Without 1.7 million.
Obviously, a building that old, like you said, the roof, but most of it is just, because we looked into that too, is just the north, about third of it that needed the roof repaired.
Yeah, there's always Band-Aids that can be taken on, but within 10, 15 years, you are talking some significant updates.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you would, yes. But like I say, within that 1.6 million, that was, and again, automatically we can take care of 200 kids, like I say, starting in 90 days. Over a 5-year period, building maintenance, if you throw in $500,000 a year for building maintenance, that should more than take care of it. The playground's already there, it's already fenced in. The air conditioning system would be upgraded if need be. The sprinkler is probably the biggest thing that would have to take, if you want to take over the whole building.
But this is where you're asking the city for like kind of that revolving loan to help take care of.
Not necessarily a revolving loan. This could be private investment too, the $200,000. But the nice thing, if the city owned it too, see, we can also do some things with the upstairs for multi-use. And the city, it could be an income source for the city or whoever. I guess I shouldn't have to say it's the city, but.
Sarah, you had something to say, but I'm going to step in. Let's not get lost in talking about Roosevelt, because that's a decision that has to be made later. Right. That would be something that we can discuss going forward, but we have a couple different things that we need to resolve. I guess what I want to, because we got a half an hour before we got to get out of this room, and I want to say thank you for offering the room for us, Tiffany. It's a great location, and it really provides the framework that we're all in this together, and it's not just a city deal. I guess that's what I want a couple different things out of this, and that is basically just the attitude, are you in or are you out on the idea? I'm not asking for any money or anything like that, but more than that, just understanding and partnership, because I fully understand that everyone here has your own obligations that you have to devote your people and your money to. And we don't want you to take away from those obligations, because that just creates another problem that we're trying, just creates another problem that we would have to address. So one of the ideas for partnership is just the understanding. It can't be just a city solution. That's one of the things that I want to just have understood. And it's just the partnership attitude, because I don't want to create any attitude that, oh, the city is going to be on the hook for it, or, school, we want you to give us Roosevelt. No, I mean, we understand that you have obligations that you have to deal with, and you have difficulties, and it's like, I've had lots of people come up and they say, well, the sisters have a lot of money, they can pay for it. No, okay, let's just get rid of that attitude that any of us have money just lying around that we can throw at this problem, because we don't. But we can have at least the attitude that we can find a way to squeeze out maybe some money to deal with the immediate problem, and then the understanding that we have to come up with something that moves forward in the future as well. So I guess, are you in or are you out on the idea, on this is a community need and we're going to work together on this, however that looks? John?
So, Mr. Mayor, first of all, I will say that over the last 2 weeks, I feel like I've had a crash course in daycare. And so to the extent that any of my comments come out as hopelessly naive, I ask for your forgiveness. And I'll go on to say that I'm not sure if my comments are going to mitigate or increase the financial needs. Prairie Lakes is a mission-driven organization. We exist to make a positive difference in the health of the communities that we serve. And so we work very hard to frame issues through that lens. Are we benefiting the health of the community? First and foremost, we are a large employer. And we need talented, dedicated women and men to come work at Prairie Lakes to care for those communities. And we compete nationally. And thus, through that lens, finding solutions to allow us to recruit and retain those talented folks is increasingly important. Now, this is the first point where I don't know if my comment is going to increase or decrease the financial need. 7:30 to 5:30 daycare doesn't help us very much. We are a 7 by 24 by 365 business. And thus, for me as a representative of Prairie Lakes to really get behind it through the lens of helping our employees, that would have to be a part of that dialogue. The second is the recognition that making a positive difference in health is not just health care. It's about community health. And it's about understanding the socioeconomic determinants of health. And as part of my crash course, I said less than a week ago that I saw two different groups. I saw a group who decide as parents to send their kids to daycare because they have significant career aspirations. And within some bounds, just tell me what it costs, I'll pay it. And then you have another group, and some of them are two-parent households and some of them are one-parent households, but they need every healthy adult hand available to work to make ends meet. I've been educated since last week that there's probably a third group in Watertown. And that third group kind of looks at this whole conversation and says, I'm not included, because even with every adult working, I can't afford daycare. And so my plan is I lock the door when I leave and tell the kids don't let anybody in. And so when I look at it through the lens of our mission and helping to serve the community, another facet of the conversation I would suggest from a Prairie Lakes perspective is to what extent can we incorporate a sliding scale or some means that would allow people who otherwise could not afford daycare to have a seat at that table. So those are my thoughts.
Sarah, you had something?
Well, so I just want to speak to that. Thank you. Because I think you speak to a population that we see coming through our doors at Cottington County Community Services on a very regular basis. Parents that want to work and that aren't able to work because they can't find childcare, and if they can't find it, they can't afford it. That's a very real cost to our community as well, is we have people that want to work and can't work because they can't find affordable childcare. And we as a community should care about that. So I just want to speak to that. There's other discussion about Roosevelt, but I appreciate what you said too. I think Roosevelt's a great idea. I think there's some challenges to making that happen as well too. And so I think that's another conversation we need to have as well.
All right, anyone else up at the table want to say something? I would like to say something to the community as well. One of the ways that I think we can be good partners in finding a solution is increase our tone, heighten the expectations for yourselves. I will just say the city council, and I don't know anyone else, we've received some pretty mean emails from the community accusing us of not doing anything for daycare, which I know you might not see it, but automatically blaming any entity is not the way to find a solution. And that's what I want to, that's one of the ways that I want to work up at this table is I understand, that's why I said I'm not blaming anyone, because we're all attending to our own jobs and then trying to take this task on as well. So Watertown can solve its own problems. That's a saying that Barb likes to use a lot. And one of the ways that we can do that is by all being on board and understanding that we're all on the same team.
I have a question for the mayor and the rest of the council. What, if anything, would you like me to add to the September 3rd agenda for further discussion and potential action?
As I said at the beginning, I'm just one vote on the council, but I would like to see some action. I don't know exactly how much, but some action to resolve the immediate need of Little Blessings transferring to the Mother of God Monastery location. And that would be a fiscal commitment from the city.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to make a couple of comments. I've had an opportunity to spend time with Sister Barb and look at the plan and walk through it and see all the different things that what they want to do. I do believe that what we're trying to get, as far as what they're trying to do, is get some funding from the city I think is paramount right now. That's really urgent for us to get taken care of, because Little Blessings needs to go the direction that they have to go. But one thing, we consider it's a little slippery slope when you're taking taxpayers' money and using it in this direction. But I will say this too. We subsidize several entities every year. They come to us for money. I mean, and just a few, the Boys and Girls Club, that's $250,000. We got the CVB, that's $350,000. WDC, Watertown Development Company, that's a couple $100,000, besides some others. And typically we support some of those folks that will help us to subsidize some of the other departments that work in the community. It might be police, might be fire, some things that could help in that regard. Mental health issues. So, this is not something new. I mean, we do this all the time. And I know you can always use the precedent issue. And perhaps it would set a little bit of a precedent, but I think this is urgent. I think this is something that needs to be on the agenda so that we can make a decision one way or the other. And I think I kind of look at what Sister Barb's bringing to the table is a gift. And I'm not discounting all the other locations that we may be able to use. We certainly need to look at that. But, I mean, it's a gift. We got a building, and it's interior modification to those two buildings. And so I think it behooves us as a city to do what we can to help support that. And the revolving loan fund seems to work a lot better for me versus the $500,000 check right up front. So I think that's workable in my opinion.
And City Manager Mack, one other thing that I think would be a good next step would be if I know that we already have the framework from Coddington Cares, but I think that a small group, a task force, if you will, of the entities that are interested should get together and figure out some of the logistics of what this might look like going forward in the future as well.
Thank you. I do have a clarifying question for Sister Barb. So, you need 500,000. You get 500,000 tomorrow. When can you start swinging hammers?
I can't start swinging a hammer until SD Works says, here's 500,000. If I swing a hammer before SD Works says, here's your loan, they will cut, I won't get the money.
No. I understand that. My question is, you need this money to secure the loan. When the loan is secured, when can you start working? I mean, is this we hope we can start in September, October, or it's going to wait until 2025?
No, it'd probably be the end of September.
Okay, thank you.
You know, as I've sat here, knowing this is going to come up and knowing what the issue's been and hearing a lot from the public, you know, I wear two hats here today as a city council person, and that's my responsibility to the taxpayers and responsibility to spending their dollars in a responsible manner. We take that very seriously. But I'm also a parent. I have no one, just so you all know, I have no one in daycare at this point. They're all out.
Like 20 years.
But okay, some should be in daycare, but they're not. Anyway, but I am a grandparent, and I have three kids three sons, and two of them have children that are in daycare, and I understand fully what they go through to try to find daycare and what that cost is, and it just blows my mind when we talk about the numbers and the challenges that are there. As a community, and now this is not me as a council person, but I believe this is a progressive community. We have always been able to come together to figure stuff out. We have. It's a challenge sometimes. I look and what I hear and see sometimes, it's really easy to say it's somebody else's problem. Let somebody else fix it. I could say that because my kids aren't in daycare. But it is my problem, because I do have grandkids, and it is my community. We need to change our paradigm a little bit as a community, I think, when it comes to this issue. This is a big issue. We're only talking about the first step here, as far as I'm concerned, and what others have talked about. We can find reasons to not be the ones to support this and figure out how this works. Or we can maybe step out of our box a little bit and try to find ways that we can make it work. And I think that's where we're at. This is a first step. And as the mayor said, the last thing I want to see is government running this damn thing. We need to be the impetus behind it. And that's the purpose of this being here today. So I hope we can figure out how we get out of that box and out of our paradigm and out of our individual areas of responsibility and figure out how we can help it. And that may mean that we all have to change a little bit. We may have to step back a little bit. But I think that's what it's going to take for this thing to really be successful. And we do need that success. Every day I talk to people that inevitably it comes down to, I can't get people hired. I can't get them. So there's a lot of issues related to that. Daycare is one of them. So it is one that we can have some control over through our efforts. So I just hope that that's where we go, that we take this from a progressive community standpoint and push this thing forward. Thank you.
Anyone else? I wasn't supposed to run this meeting, so that was going to be your job, Amanda. Did anyone else up at the table want to say anything? Councilman Schutte?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just taking notes today and listening to all this, and what really seems to drive home for me as well as a fellow councilman and fellow member of this, or citizen of this community, is working together as a community, getting individuals, businesses, as is already starting. Well, it started 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and now it's moving forward even more. So as far as the city getting involved and how to get involved, even this discussion today is very beneficial. As far as getting the construction process started with the St. Anne's daycare, there was another option brought up today here. So there may be another one. I wouldn't blame them for getting in line saying, well, okay, what can the city do for us as well? That's where it gets a little challenging, because there's already 2 on the table today being discussed, more the St. Anne's. But so again, as being a good steward of finances within the city, this revolving loan, this just grander vision of getting community involved and coming up with funds to come up with a $600 child gap for either new daycare or expanding a daycare I believe is going to be the solution on a grander scale. Can we do that in time to help the monastery work out the St. Anne's daycare process? It'd be nice if some way we could go that direction to help out, and in that bigger umbrella versus financially just putting a shot into one, because then there could be another one behind that or another one after that. So just doesn't mean I'm not open to one idea or the other. I'm just thinking out loud on how I'm processing the discussions today, and absolutely we need some discussions as a city, as a council, how to properly navigate through this. So that's just kind of where I'm at today.
Thank you. Anyone else up at the table?
I'll just say thank you. Thank you for this forum.
Yes, thank you for bringing everybody together.
And we do need to get out of the room, but we did say that there would be public comments. I would just say, if you do want to comment to the entire table, I would ask to limit it to maybe something like what Jim did, which is you have an idea like Roosevelt or something like that. We know that you're here because you're concerned either for your own children or for someone else's children or the community. We understand that, we acknowledge it, we agree with it. But in order to get out of the room, we can't listen to it right now. So I would just say, but I do want to welcome anyone who wants to address the entire table. If you have like a specific idea on something that would help the entire community, then we would welcome that. Or if you have $500,000 that you would like to. Yep. Here.
Can I sing? Not very well. You've heard me. My name is Dave Weigel, Director of Project Management for Mother God Monastery. I love to say that I have 30 of the greatest bosses in the world, so I appreciate where I'm at. I've had the privilege of being on the construction design meetings for the last 6 months of the monastery. One of the things that I think just needs to be said as well, too, is how thorough we have tried to be with the state, with the licensing, with the space. The rooms that we are proposing and working with our consultants in the state, they are down to the inches of making sure we have the right amount of space for the kids, for the restrooms, for the sinks, sprinkler systems. We have had, unfortunately, a longer lead time than we expected, so we're going through some of these designs multiple times, so we're tweaking them. My last meeting was 3 o'clock this afternoon. We haven't delayed our meetings. We're continuously going through it. But the one thing I want to make sure that we understand or add value to this meeting, in a very, very tight schedule that we have been working on, and now this was last spring thought process, it's a 6-month remodel process. Now, can that be shortened? You can't promise that to anybody that's been in construction. So if we to what Sister Barb mentioned, and apparently end of September, I might be busy, right? But it's 6 months. So, we keep sliding. Matter of fact, one of the conversations we had today during our construction meetings, what if it's another 30 days? What if it's another 60 days? We're trying to second guess things like parking lot, asphalt, outside work. We keep talking about swinging the hammer. We're ready. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we have to still say, okay, now we can go forward. Where does that slide? But it's a 6-month schedule. So the little blessings, timelines, all of those things, we're trying to manage that, but we're committed. Or Sister Barb has told me I'm committed, so I'm committed. But if there, I'm offering as well too. I've also had the privilege of several people in the community giving tours of St. Anne's. I know Sister Barb is obviously too, but if there's anything I can do, most of you know me, give me a call. I'm more than happy to help.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, I want to thank everyone for coming. Thank you for being part of a community-driven solution, and I look forward to where we're going to take this community going forward. So with that said, thank you all for being here, and just stay tuned because we're going to be doing some things. Thank you very much.